Hey everyone, and welcome. So whether you're deep into your BSBSUS511 unit or you're just really passionate about making workplaces more sustainable, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to walk through the complete blueprint for building a really powerful and effective sustainability policy, starting right from square one. Okay, let's get into it. Here's our roadmap for today. Think of it as a step-by-step journey. We'll start with the foundation, what is sustainability really? Then we'll draw up the blueprint, put all the pieces together, and finally, get ready for the launch. And of course, at the end, we'll boil it all down to the key things you've got to remember.
All right, first things first, we got to build our foundation. Because before we can even think about writing a policy on sustainability, we need to be absolutely crystal clear on what that word actually means, especially in a business setting.
So, when we talk about sustainability in business, what are we really getting at? Well, you can kind of think of it like this delicate balancing act. On one hand, you've got to have long-term profit, right? A business has to survive. But on the other hand, you have the environment and you have society. Real sustainability isn't about picking one over the others, it's about figuring out how to weave them all together so they're all pulling in the same successful direction.
And this visual just nails it. This is the heart of the whole concept. You'll hear it called the 3 Ps all the time: people, planet, and profit. If you focus on any one of these alone, you're only getting a tiny piece of the puzzle. The real magic, that sweet spot where a business can thrive for years and years, is right there in the middle, where all 3 of those circles overlap.
Now, this diagram takes that idea even one step further. Check out where the circles overlap. When you blend social and environmental goals, you create a system that's bearable for people to live in. When you mix environment and economics, your plan has to be viable, or it just won't last. And when social and economic goals meet, they have to be equitable or fair. Our main goal? It's to hit that tiny but incredibly powerful intersection of all 3. That's where true sustainability lives.
So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, socially, it means building an amazing reputation that customers love. Economically, we're talking about pure efficiency, because less waste always means lower costs. And environmentally, it's all about protecting our resources for the future. The big takeaway here is that these aren't just feel-good ideas. They have a direct, measurable impact on the bottom line.
Okay, so now we get it. We've got the what and the why totally down. So let's get practical and move on to the how. We are officially moving from theory to the blueprint. It's time to start planning this thing out. A little bit of planning at this stage goes such a long way, trust me. Before you write a single word of the policy, you need to have good answers to these 5 key questions. First, what are the laws we have to follow? Second, who does this policy actually affect? We call them stakeholders. Third, what specific problems are we trying to solve here? Fourth, which departments in the business need to be involved? And maybe the most important one, what does success actually look like?
Now, to answer those questions, you're going to need some information, and you'll find it in 2 main places. First, you have to look inside your own company, at your operation plans, your business plans, any policies you already have. But, and this is key, you can't forget to look externally. Check out government websites, see what your industry bodies are recommending, and understand what your community expects. A really strong policy has to consider both of those perspectives.
Just collecting a mountain of information isn't gonna cut it. The real power, the magic, it comes from the analysis. This is where you connect the dots. This is where you find that crucial gap between where your company is right now and where you want it to be. That gap, that's your mission. That's what your policy is going to fix. All right, our blueprint is ready to go. We've done our homework, we've set our goals. Now it's time to actually start assembling the policy. But I've got to tell you, this next part is a team sport. Collaboration is absolutely everything here. So just take a second and think about that. If you're building a policy that's going to touch pretty much everyone in the company, who absolutely has to have a seat at the table when it's being written? The answer is everyone, or as we call them, stakeholders. And that net is cast way wider than you might think. We're not just talking about the people inside the company, the employees, the managers. We're also talking about everyone outside, from your suppliers and your customers, all the way to government regulators. Every single one of them has a stake in how your company operates. And that is exactly why consultation is so critical. By actually talking to all of these different groups, you get these incredible insights you would have totally missed otherwise. But even more important, you build support and buy-in right from the start. Think about it. A policy that people feel like they helped create is a policy they're way more likely to get behind and actually follow. Okay, so let's pop the hood and look at the anatomy of a really strong policy document.
A great one will always have a clear scope, some stated objectives, and this is critical, performance indicators. How are you going to measure success? It also needs to be realistic about the resources, the timelines, and the costs. And finally, always include a plan for continuous improvement. A policy should be a living, breathing document, not just something that sits on a shelf collecting dust.
So, we've scoped it, we've written it, now comes the most important part of all, actually making it happen. I mean, a beautifully written policy is totally useless if it isn't put into action effectively. Welcome to the launch phase.
To have a successful launch, you absolutely need a clear plan. And this checklist right here, this is your guide. Notice how it moves from those big ideas, like setting smart goals, all the way down to the nitty-gritty details, like defining activities, getting the resources you need, and planning for training. And just like when we were drafting it, communication is everything here.
And let's be real for a second. You're probably going to face some challenges. People might push back against change, your resources could be tight, communication can break down. It happens. But for every single roadblock, there's a key to success. Strong direction from the top, clear and constant communication, and a really good tip, don't try to do everything at once. Taking a phased approach can make a world of difference.
Now, when it comes to communication, please don't just rely on a single email and hope for the best. You need to use every single channel you've got. Present the policy formally, talk about it in team meetings, put up posters on notice boards, and bring it up in casual conversations. The more times people hear the message, and in different ways, the better they'll understand their part in making it a success.
Whew, we have covered a ton of ground, from the big ideas right down to the practical steps. So let's bring it all home and highlight the absolute must-know takeaways you're going to need for your studies.
So, if you remember nothing else from our chat today, please remember these 4 things. Number 1, sustainability is all about balancing people, planet, and profit. Number 2, creating a policy is a 3-step journey. You scope it, you craft it, you implement it. 3, talking to your stakeholders isn't optional. It's essential for success. And finally, number 4, your policy has to be a living document with clear goals. You master those 4 points, and you're going to be in fantastic shape.
So we'll end with a little question to get you thinking. You now have the entire framework for creating big strategic change. But what's one small thing, one tiny change you could start with tomorrow? Give it some thought, because that little spark, that's where every single great sustainability journey begins.